Hello and welcome to the Low Carb Conversations podcast. Our guest today is Debbie Potts. She is a fellow FNTP. She is also an NASM trainer, a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. She is a health detective. She is an athlete. She is also a fellow podcaster. This girl is doing it all. Welcome to the show, Debbie.
Hey, thanks for having me. So excited to talk low carb and with fellow nutritional therapy practitioners. So I'm excited to dive deep into all things low carb and fitness and all the myths out there.
Yes, I love it. And we have Leah with us. Hi, Leah.
Hi, Holly. Hi, Debbie. Welcome.
Welcome. Okay, yeah, we are really diving into it today since Debbie is an athlete herself. This is such a great topic to cover because while there is a lot of stuff that you can find about low carb and about fitness, really not a lot of it is specifically for women necessarily, and maybe not even necessarily for that really tailored low carb athlete. So we have a lot of questions, a lot of things we want to dive into today. But first, Debbie, why don't you give us like a little rundown of your background and how you came into being in nutrition coaching and fitness?
Yeah, I'll try to make it short because I could talk an hour about it. But I've always been in fitness and nutrition since I was in college and went into be a personal trainer. But over that journey, I was also started getting into running races and marathons and did my first Ironman 20 years ago somehow this year. And so I started doing Ironmans and marathons every year. And yeah, it's been a long journey. And from that, I started following all the rules that we're told as athletes doing endurance training to fuel, how many calories an hour. And, back then it was thinking I was healthy, having the typical orange juice and banana and bagel, and think I had to eat this food to get my metabolism going. And then I'd go teach spin class and then go meet people to go for a group ride. And I was doing all the Cliff Bar and trying to do that an hour and all these calories in a bottle every hour. And then I started doing Ironmans in 2001 and I would do the race and I would throw up the whole time because I was trying to pack in all this liquid calories because that's what I was supposed to do. So I started kind of diving into a little bit more information about fueling and was already doing heart rate training and learning about Mapatone back then. Even then, I was learning about the lower heart rate training to teach your body to burn fat for fuel for endurance sports. But then I started kind of figuring it out, just like, how is this supposed to work if I have fat on my body that I'm not losing? I'm training for marathons and Ironmans, but I'm still fat. And then I was overweight. I wasn't fat, but I was not losing weight at all. And then I was having problems racing and I just, was a pretty good athlete, but I just couldn't figure out the nutrition. So I went down this path trying to figure out, all right, what if I don't eat before I go for a bike ride? Well, of course, I was eating the healthy, fat-free lifestyle and I just bonked and couldn't bike ride. And then someone gave me a Cliff Bar and I had, they're 50, 60 grams of carbs. So I came back to life. And that was kind of the start of what I started to figure out is how are you supposed to fuel your body for exercise when you have fat for fuel in your body you want to use? And then how are you going for 1, 2, 3 hour, 5 hour bike rides and then doing Ironman? It was a whole different thing. So I learned a lot starting back then from my own journey and experiments.
Yeah, I think that's something actually a lot of people wonder is you look at marathon runners or these extreme athletes, and I'll just specifically pick on marathon runners, but they don't always look like the picture of health and they have extra body weight. And so it's like we have this idea in our mind that if you're a marathon runner, you're going to be thin and fit, but that's not necessarily what happens. So what is going on there?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I started getting into is, are you fit and healthy on the inside and out? So many athletes look fit. And then, fast forward to today, now I'm doing lab testing and you can identify these hidden internal stressors that are creating havoc on their body, but they still think they're fit because they look what they look like on the outside. And so really being health detective, what I'm doing now to really find, all right, how can we improve our health from the inside out? But I think so many athletes, I started learning about low carb and doing low heart rate training and working with Phil Maffetone's and I formula, the 180 Meister age training we can talk about. I was Mark Allen, who is an ex-pro triathlete, won Ironman Hawaii multiple years. He is famous for working with Maffetone early in his career and getting his body to be fat adapted, exercising, but putting nutrition with it. And then there's a coach, USA Triathlon coach program I learned about through Bob Seebehor, talk about metabolic efficiency. And then he started putting nutrition, but nutrition pairing it with exercise and then timing your nutrition, all that. So I really kind of had a few people that were speaking out of the box in the endurance world, and then you have to kind of put it together. And as a personal trainer, I was also seeing it with just people exercising at my studio. I owned a gym for 10 years, and that it's like, all right, exercising, lifting weights or doing cardio 3 days a week, that's not working either. So I started seeing this pattern of nutrition is something we need to address. You can't out exercise poor eating habits. And I also say can't out supplement poor lifestyle habits. So I created the holistic method to work on all these 8 elements I dive into with clients to help them really be fit and healthy from the inside out. Because it's not just how we exercise, but it's what we eat and when and how and why and all that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So important. And I have so many questions, but I know we're going to cover a lot of them when we get into the articles. And so I'll just hang out here a little bit longer. So you work with clients now, you treat this, the holistic athlete. I love that. Where do clients find you now? How do you work with people? Like, what does your program look like?
Well, I have a website, debbiepotts.net, and I coach people with kind of a nutritional therapy assessment, doing what we do as nutritional therapy practitioners. And then there's a little higher and more health investigator type of programs that adds the lab testing in it. If you feel like, you're struggling to get results and you're trying to get your body and your vibrant self back again, but you just can't, you're doing all the right things, you can't figure out what's wrong. And so I created these packages that kind of combines everything I do, working on your genetics, your nutritional therapy assessment, digestion, and all of that we talk about. And then looking at their exercise and their sleep and their stress and their movement throughout the day. And a really important one is digestion and hydration, but even more important, I think, is happiness and playing and laughing and having fun, because most of us athletes are typically type A, driven, ambitious, high-performing individuals that sometimes, we try too hard and too much of everything. And so I found it's like that Goldilocks effect, that for everything we talk about, it's like not too much, not too little, the right amount to create that positive response in your body. Because my big story was I was a competitive Ironman athlete, 2001, 2013, then I got adrenal exhaustion and haven't been the same since. So that kind of goes back to your question earlier. What I do now kind of is what happened to me. I want to help others avoid going through what I did the last 8 years and kind of share that story in my book, Life is Not a Race, It is a Journey, and tying it all together.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So, your book, can we find that on Amazon and stuff?
Yeah, it's just, it's more just, I feel the need to help people. And just, I think, as most of us practitioners, we all have our own stories and our own journeys. And I think, sharing that and being authentic and vulnerable and sharing what happened to you, that's like, other people might be able to relate and connect with that. And so you can help them from digging themselves into a hole that totally creates this metabolic chaos in their own body, instead of wasting 10 years trying to figure out what's wrong with them. It could something we can address now before it's too much of a mess.
Absolutely. I think our personal testimonies go so far in terms of helping other people. And yes, it's one thing to do all the schooling and do all the training and stuff, but people want to know that they're not alone in their struggles, and that someone else has walked this path before them and can help them along their journey. And it's not just talking to some person who has no idea what you're going through, but but has been there. And so I think that's really important to share personal testimony. So I love that you have shared that and you have a book and a reference for people. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And I think we'll, get into the low carb athlete, but I think it goes again, that right amount for you, whatever exercise, low carb, keto, fasting, what type of exercise, more is not better. And so we have to find that right amount, because I was, started doing all this stuff 10, 15 years ago, doing keto, going fasted workouts, doing low carb, and I did too much of it. So there's that right amount. I think we also always need to talk about that. Yes, this is so great to do, but it depends.
Right. And there's something that you're right when you said that like athletes are that type A, like they're a different type of client, and it can be a challenge to get them to, at least in my experience from working in the gym, to get people to want to slow down and take the time to figure it out and to tweak things and to find that Goldilocks area that you talk about, where I call it like the sweet spot, because like you said, it's not the same for every single person. But I found like the athletes, they're so driven. They're like, just tell me what to do. I want bam, bam, bam. Like, tell me what to follow. But it's like, well, we can start here, but it's going to be a process of trying to figure it out. But I can work with you to figure out what those levers are that you need to pull and how to monitor and tweak things. And so, but then once you can get there, that is so empowering. And then they're like, oh, I've got this.
Yeah, it is definitely needing to layer it, because they're so driven, they do everything, and then they they don't create new habits and change why they are messed up in the first place.
Yeah. All right, let's dive into these articles. Leah, do you have anything you want to ask before we get going?
I do have a question for Debbie before we get into the articles. And I was just wondering, like, what led you to become a functional nutritional therapy practitioner? Where does that fit into the journey? I'm always interested in that story.
Yeah, so I always was in exercise, but always fascinated with nutrition. And was in college, and I was like exercise science. I started going to being a nutritionist in college. And like, this is too much chemistry and physics and too much science. And I was taking the courses and I didn't like it. And then that was always something I was interested in since I was in high school, is nutrition and exercise. And I just didn't resonate with me taking the traditional programs in college on it. And then I was so excited to hear I had a friend doing it, and I think it was following, you and other people that were in the podcast world and in a world like, oh my gosh, I want to be able to do that. And so I finally, took the course, and it was the most amazing course, because we got to do it in person back then, and had, the group of people that you meet. But I think, to me, it's always looking at figuring out what the root causes are and looking at the whole picture. And I love nutritional therapy because you're working on the foundations, and you can't, I do lab testing now, but I start with nutritional therapy because I don't care what the labs say. If you're not working on slowing down, pressing pause and reset before you eat, you can take all the supplements you want and all the good, healthy food. But if you're not able to digest it because you're eating in a sympathetic state, we're going to have issues. So that was a big part. And then I always, just was helping people as a personal trainer and not getting results with them because you only see them twice a week. And then I started really looking at, I need to help their nutrition, but nutritional therapy it made sense to me to add that in with exercise and the lifestyles and the stressor issue.
It's really that whole picture, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like I almost feel like my story is kind of the reverse of that, in terms of I've been through all the nutrition stuff and I can only get so far with my clients. So now I'm like working on the kind of movement side of things with yoga and Pilates as well. Yeah. So it's like, you need that holistic picture for optimal health, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the holistic method it's what we all do. I just put it into kind of a circle that it's not one is more important than the other, because it's nutrition and exercise. So they're not in order, and you kind of find what that person, where they meet them, where they're at, what they need to start with. But then there's sleep, and there's stress management and movement, digestion, gut health, the hydration, and happiness. And sometimes you just want to make people work on moving throughout the day first. Just get up and, squat 10 times, or do some push-ups on the wall, or run up the stairs, and just move more during the day. And sometimes you have to start with that. or just learning how to breathe and push pause, and so they can eat properly, because everyone's always eating while they're doing 10 other things. So that's why I love it all.
I was going to say, even just sitting still for 5 minutes, like just sitting still for 5 minutes can be the hardest thing for some people.
It is, I know.
Yeah.
So it is a big part of what we do.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, let's get into the articles today, because we've got some really great articles. I have the first one, which is called "Do Low Carb and High Fat Diets Impact Athletic Performance?" So as we were just talking before, there is a lot of mixed messages around how we should be adapting for athletic performance. And so like some say low carb doesn't work, some say you should be fat adapted, some are saying the traditional method is all about whether you should be eating lots of carbohydrates before you go. So like, I'm not even going to read much of the article out because it's a long one, but I just would like to know your opinion on, how does one decipher what is best for them in terms of whether they should be eating low carb or whether they should be, eating more carbs before doing athletic performance?
Well, a couple of things I noted on my notes here is what type of exercise you're doing, how you're training, what intensity you're doing, when you are exercising, what time of day I think makes a difference. And if you are even fat adapted, if you are a high carb eater, that's going to change it too. So it depends. Are they fat fueled athlete or are they a carb fueled athlete? And then talking about using continuous glucose monitors that I've been doing to figure out, what to eat, when and why and how. But so
it's more of an experimentation kind of
it's what I think we all probably say. It's not one size fits all approach, and it's so individualized. And I work on people if they're, again, meet them where they're at. If you're not low carb already, we can't just do fasted workouts if you're eating carbs all the time. So if you are a fat adapted individual, then we can start adding in exercise with eating low carb that you're not feeling low energy or bonking. If you're efficient at fat fueling and your exercise is a fat burning exercise. So if I'm training, so say philmapatone, the MAF formula is max aerobic function heart rate is 180 minus your age, plus or minus 5 beats. Is a formula you can look up. It's been around for 20, 30 years now, is your max aerobic function heart rate. So say you're 4 years old, your max heart rate would be, if you're 40, 80 minus 40, you want to train at it around 140 to say 120 heart rate. And you're training your body to be burning fat, being metabolically efficient. I used to test people on a treadmill and their metabolic efficiency, and you could see, are they burning fat or carbs, or when their metabolic crossover point is where they're burning carbs over fat. So if you know specifically where that person should train intensity wise with the heart rate monitors, what I've always done. And then you can work on tweaking their nutrition. But if they're doing a high intensity workout, they're going to be burning more glycogen fuel versus I'm going to go for a low heart rate bike ride or hike or walk, or I can run in that aerobic fat burning. I don't have to eat anything at all.
Yeah. And so in this article, it's saying that a recent study found that training on a low carb diet raises the need for protein amongst high level endurance athletes. So it's kind of talking about like, if you're low carb, then you need to add more protein in to kind of get that fuel where you would have got that from carbohydrates. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, that was one of the rabbit holes. I'm like, okay, well, where are they getting this from? And let me read that. And the most articles research I pull up are showing, yes, if you're doing fasted workouts, have some amino acids. And I work with Ben Greenfield as a coach. We have people have 20 grams of aminos before. You can take the tablets or capsules, or you can drink aminos and have them before and or after your workout, and then have water with sea salt in it. So I think it's not having a steak or having protein itself. I think having amino acids is good. I saw ironically, some Instagram post today of what you should eat before a workout. I'm like, tuna fish, hard-boiled egg. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to eat that and go work out, I'm going to be throwing up on the side, and I'm going to be burping up eggs or tuna. It's not going to be digesting. So easily digestible protein like aminos in a capsule would be easier, I think. But I think you need some protein.
Yeah, definitely sounds like, because I think, and Holly's going to talk about this in her article when we get to it, but when we think of protein, we do automatically start thinking like, okay, oh no, now I'm going to have to go and eat a steak before I do this exercise. That's not going to be digested.
Yeah. And I think
So,
there's a lot of junk though out there too. Like if you look on people go, okay, I'm going to look at Amazon and get some protein drinks. And I mean, then I think that's one of our other articles, but there's so much garbage out there. What type of protein? So like Keon products, because I know Ben Greenfield owns the company. He's going to research it. It's going to be pure and clean and the best quality because he's like going to not put his name on something bad quality. And then other ones that are recommended from people, but I'm not going to eat solid food, especially protein, before I work out or right after I work out because you can't digest it.
And so we mentioned a few times about being fasted, you've been fasting before a workout. The next article is kind of talking about like, when should you eat to fuel your workout? So do you, is this a bio-individual approach as well? Because, or is it, is there a preferred method of when you should eat before or after? Like one of the articles saying here that like, if you exercise on an empty stomach, you're going to feel lightheaded, get a headache, feel faint and weak.
Well,
and then,
yeah,
I was going to say, and then it goes on to say though, you should like eat oatmeal or a peanut butter and a banana sandwich before you go and work out. So let's talk about some of the things that are going on in this article.
Well, again, you're talking to the masses, right? The majority of the people aren't like us eating low carb or eating real food because that's a problem in our world right now is all the processed foods and the high sugar intake of people's food plans or diets are eating. But so it depends again on the individual. Are you eating real healthy, clean food, monitoring your blood sugar, eating to balance your blood sugar and not having a lot of high and low blood sugar roller coaster response to your food? So let's work on what you're eating first and then see, all right, again, are you burning fat? Are we fat adapted now? Then we can start going into the morning fasted workouts that are lower heart rate. And then you go break your fast, having something that's easy to digest when you are feeling hungry. I might have some aminos, maybe some creatine and some water and some sea salt and have that post-workout. But eating before you work out food, I can't digest stuff like that, as I said, nor afterwards, you're in a sympathetic state. So go back to what we learned as nutritional therapy is, it starts north, digestion starts north. So if I'm going to eat something and force because this article or news tells me in the magazines say to eat in 30 minutes. Well, I started to challenge that myself. Like, I'm not hungry. Should I eat when I'm not hungry? And I can't digest anything right now because I just got done working out. I'm probably still in fight or flight mode when I need to be in parasympathetic rest and digest mode to break it down. So wait, and I've read articles too. So wait 1 to 2 hours post workout to eat. And then you're able to digest. So pause on that.
Yeah.
I always thought, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go, Helen.
Oh, I always thought that part was really interesting. Like the advice that's out there to eat protein within an hour after working out, or to make sure you eat within an hour, because then it's like, well, we know that your body can't be in a state of breaking down and building at the same time. So it's like, well, that advice just completely contradicts itself, because like you can't be eating after you work out to help lose weight, but then also eating to gain muscle, because you're not gaining muscle and losing weight at the same time.
Yeah. And it's just all of what I've learned is from my own experience. Like I figured, okay, Ironmans, I can't do 300, 500 calories an hour. Doesn't work for my body. Does it work for me to have a bagel and orange juice and banana? No, I'm going to have a total crash and be hungry an hour later. So I think it's paying attention to what you're eating and how does that food make you feel? If I need to eat before working out, well, why is that? What did you do for your meal previous to that? Did you go to bed late at night and you ate? You have a longer fast between your last meal to your workout time. There's so many different factors to look at. If you can't wake up and exercise, or what could you do instead? But, working on those little tweaks, I think is important per that person. So you have to investigate a little bit deeper and go, okay, what can we do instead? If it's having some aminos and some water, have that beforehand. Or maybe you just need some electrolytes, some minerals in some water and slice lemon, apple cider vinegar. Maybe that helps you feel better. So I think it's just trial and error, and that N=1 experiment for athletes to figure out what works, because everyone is so different. I can never say, okay, everyone should do a fasted workout. And then you look at women, and sometimes some time of the month, maybe they need a little bit more carbs. And it's learning how to listen to your body and respect that, because I think we override a lot of the signals our body tells us, warning signs.
That's so true. And these articles too, they're like written, like you were saying, for the general population. And I guess most of the general population aren't athletes. Most are like, getting up and just trying to move their body and exercise for a purpose. So again, like there's going to be different requirements for the different types of energy that people are expending. Is that right?
Well, I think it's a tough one, because it's like, it's not addressing that. Why is that you can't have a good energetic workout? Because you're eating the wrong foods. You're burning carbs and not fat. So let's address the issue of what you're eating. If you have to eat and you're going to have a poor workout and not enough energy, what are you eating? I think it started with that. And so they're not going to say that. And of course, we know mainstream media and magazines aren't always going to say, don't eat these processed foods and don't eat, I think it goes back to advertisers in there too. Who's advertising next to that article? It's that chocolate milk drink or that Cliff Bar or Power Bar. So it's hard, because it's not, I don't feel like that's updated research. Like Volek and Finney wrote this book over 10 years ago, the art and science of low carb performance, that I always bring out when I review notes. And they talked about this forever. They've proven research of endurance athletes, and it depends on that person. So it is a tough one in an article. Are they going to say you really don't need all those carbs?
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of them are still like, it's still in that whole paradigm of eating the carbohydrates and eating low fat. So people haven't moved past that still in the media. Yeah,
I think my summary of that article would be that, yes, if you're not changing what you're eating, if you still want to be a carb burner, but if you want to be burning fat off your body, then let's look at the better option that you might want to look at.
Holly, did you want to say something there?
Yeah, I have a question. It's not really, I like to go off topic, but still kind of related. But since you brought up like listening to your body and deciding like when you eat and what you eat and all this stuff, I know a common question that I get and that people have is, when you're training or when you're on a workout schedule, and some days you just don't feel like working out, right? And that a lot of times comes with motivation. Yeah, you just don't feel like it. But what is some advice that you have, or what are some like things for people to look at for when maybe, it is not the right time for you to work out? When would be a good time to skip that workout? And what do you listen to on your body for that?
It's ring. I'm not flipping you off.
I was like, what's happening?
This is an aura ring. So when I got my adrenal exhaustion, air quotes, because it's technically HPA axis dysfunction, which is now like HPATGO axis dysfunction, but your heart rate variability score is something I test on my aura ring. But when I had my adrenal issues, and that happened in 2013, about March. And I went from top of my age group, Ironman Hawaii, lean, strong, best race times of my year in 2012. And I gained 30 pounds by like June, that 2013, and had to have naps every day. My heart rate variability score was something I worked with a company called Sweet Beat and used their app and measured every day my heart rate variability, because it can measure your resiliency. So it's a good way to measure your stress level. And looking at my HF score on their low frequency and high frequency, as well as looking at my heart rate variability score because he wanted a higher number is better, more resiliency. So I could use that number if it was like dropped really low, or Oura Ring nowadays has your readiness score. And you can tell, all right, my score just went way down from my normal. I need to do a rest day, or, I always do something. To me, it's not like rest means sit on your butt and watch Netflix. It means walk 3 times a day. Like breakfast, lunch, dinner, I tell my clients means move. It doesn't mean eat. It means get up and go move and do something, get outside in nature. So that's a good way to know when you should take a rest day. And sometimes you can just feel it. You can also look at, for women, looking at their cycle map, and there's a lot of new apps coming out for women to cycle their menstrual cycle with their nutrition and their exercise and figure out that timing as well. But also I can just tell, okay, I feel like crap. I'll have the 10-minute rule. If I don't feel better on a run, 15 minutes, I'm gonna just walk. And I stop trying to run, because running tired and you don't feel it is not pretty. It's better just to walk. Or if I'm going to the gym to lift weights, because I've been trying to lift more now that we have a gym open, then I just do an easier workout. I don't do burpees and my box jumps and a higher intensity workout. Then I'm just going to lie on the bench and do free weights, and I'm going to do pullovers and stuff. I'm totally resting, doing the lazy workout. So yeah, I've learned how to pay attention, because I didn't pay attention for so long, which dug myself into the metabolic hormone imbalance chaos I was in.
Yeah, thank you for that. Because I think a lot of people don't pay attention, and I grew up as an athlete too, and we're taught to suck it up and push through. And it doesn't matter how you feel. Feelings are for babies.
Yeah.
Like, you go out there and you do your best. And so I think it's important to talk about those things that you just addressed, and to even make it acceptable to be able to take a rest day and listen to your body.
Well, that's what I do for some clients, is kind of start them in this intro package, is working on, let me see your schedule for 2 weeks, your food plan and your training schedule, and then even look at their nutritional therapy assessment I do, and then their supplements and their sleep. Just track everything for me a couple weeks, and let's look at it. Because usually you see people doing like CrossFit every day, or they're doing I know someone that does biking here, and then they're always with a group, so they're always doing high heart rate when you're in a group. And then they do Orange Theory, this other HIIT type of training. So everything they're doing is high heart rate. So one high heart rate workout day, 2 easy days after that. Measure your recovery on your Oura score, or your Whoop band, or put your heart rate monitor and measure your heart rate variability on the app for 5 minutes. You're gonna just mess your whole body up for a long time, damaging it. If you don't, I would know. Happened to me.
It's such great advice there. I think just like listening to your body. And just to finish off the article, even at the end of the article that I was looking at, there was a couple of good sentences where it was just saying, at the end of the day, you are your own best trainer and instructor. If it doesn't feel good to eat before a workout, then don't. But if you're doing the same things and you're not happy with the results, then change it up. Eat before the workout, eat after the workout, change up the workouts, and ultimately listen to your body and modify your strategies to reach your goals. And I thought, oh, that's a nice way to finish that.
Yeah, no, I did copy that into my notes I made. That, they had some really good points. And I think it's good to highlight that the articles aren't all bad, but it just, give them the summary of it was actually pretty good.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I'm going to move on now to the last article that Holly has, and it's all about protein. I'm actually excited to talk about this article. I hadn't thought of it in those perspectives. And so, Holly, I'll hand over to you.
Mute myself here. Yes, so the title of this article is Muscles and Methane, How Protein Became the Food Industry's Biggest Craze. And what I really want to focus on in this article is actually the protein, our protein sources, how much protein we need, and how much protein we don't need, and not so much the methane part of it. because I think that's a whole other conversation. So we'll just focus on this here. And so this is just talking about how protein has gone from being this thing that was only something bodybuilders focused on to now it is really mainstream, and everybody's talking about protein and how much protein we need, to where like even junk foods now are like extra fortified with protein because everyone thinks, oh, well, if it has protein in it, then it's a healthy snack and I need to eat all this protein. So what do you think, Debbie, where has this come from? Like, what do you think, in your opinion, like as a professional in the industry, where this protein obsession stemmed from?
Well, I think it's all marketing again, because it's just food trends and the industry needs to make money. And so we don't make money telling people, the food industry doesn't make money say, go eat from your local farmers and order grass-fed meat and fish from your local sources, and don't shop in the grocery store aisles, shop in the outer. I learned that forever ago when I did like Jenny Craig Weight Watchers in high school. It's like, don't buy the food in the middle. And so I always see trends. I don't know if you ever heard of Expo West when you lived over here. My husband's in the food industry, so I went as a food blogger last couple of years pre-pandemic. And it was fascinating because it was just whatever food research was out there, like turmeric, CBD. And now it's probably protein. If we had Expo West this year, it'd probably be all protein and keto stuff. And so it just gets all to be packaged foods. It's like same thing as keto, clean keto versus processed dirty keto, whatever you want to call it, is what happened to paleo. Everything got to be a packaged food. So now it's protein. And I know probably the trend of carnivore, and looking at Dr. Gabby Leon has a ton of research and is speaking all over about protein as we age and sarcopenia, and how we need to add more protein in our diet, especially as women, as we're more post-menopausal female athletes. We need more protein, but where are you going to get it from? Packaged food in the bars in there, it's filled with crap. So, I think it's just, people paying attention to what's the next thing out there, and let's make a product on it. Because how many food do you see that are keto now, and they're at Costco? And I think the same thing with protein. It's just because there's protein, people don't read the ingredient list is a whole like paragraph of stuff that you don't know what it is. So I think always reading the ingredients and then reading the carbs on it too, because I think it gets to be so much. And I'm so carb sensitive, my blood sugar will shoot up if anything says even keto, paleo bread, keto bread, protein stuff, but what other fillers are in there will still raise my blood sugar. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good point there too, is like reading the package stuff. And just because it does have protein in it doesn't necessarily make it a health food. And specifically speaking for like protein powders, like I know protein powders and smoothies, like I know that's a go-to for a lot of people, but the protein and protein powders and even protein and supplements, like that's a denatured protein. Like our bodies don't use it the same, absorb it the same as we would like a complete whole food protein. And I think people who are maybe a little bit insulin resistant or not fat adapted, taking in all these protein products, those do have a direct impact on maybe not necessarily our blood glucose, which you would know because you monitor, but it does have an impact on our insulin. And we know that when we're spiking insulin is a growth hormone, and it's going to be growing things that we don't necessarily want to grow. So I think it's important to understand that just because it is protein, yes, protein is good for the body, it might not necessarily be good for your body.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of stuff in them though. If people read the label, the protein bars, because I've been trying to find some that are good to have if I'm on a bike ride that have low carbs, and I don't want them to melt either. And protein that's easy to digest. And, there are some out there, they're pretty clean ingredients. So I always read the labels, and you have to now I'm turning 50 in a couple of weeks. And so now it's like I have to wear reader glasses at the grocery store because those labels are so tiny. So I have to carry and read everything, because I thought I bought something this side note, but I bought pumpkin seeds the other day at Trader Joe's and they have sugar in them. I was like, oh my gosh, you have to read the label of everything.
I hate that.
Spiced pumpkin seeds. And I am so, again, sugar sensitive. I had them like, uh-oh, this has sugar in it. I can tell because I'll get a headache in 5 seconds. And so it goes with everything. Just, are you eating real food? And what we talk about nutritional therapy, are you able to digest it properly and break it down? And I think a lot of those need to be addressed for people.
Yeah. Well, and then since we're talking about protein and you mentioned Trader Joe's, like I know Trader Joe's has a couple products and one is like just chicken and the other one is like, I don't know, it's like 2 things of chicken where it's like one's chicken breast and one's like just chicken, but one of them actually is just like chicken and salt and olive oil. And the other one is like chicken and a whole list of like preservatives and stuff, but the packaging on the front both says just chicken. So that's just a good example of, you may think you're buying just chicken, but you still have to look at the ingredients. You may think you're buying just pumpkin seeds, but you have to look at the ingredients. Specifically about protein, there is a lot of different camps on how much protein is an appropriate amount of protein. I know this article specifically says something about a protein intake of 50 grams, but then there's another camp that says you should be eating like half your body weight, like whatever you weigh, divide that in half or something. It's kind of like the water thing, but like half a gram of protein per pound of body weight. So I mean, is this, again, is there an answer here or a recommendation, or is it just kind of like, also, how do you feel?
Well, I was looking up, I mean, it does have all sorts of different guidelines. So I was looking up articles that I've had from Ben Greenfield, because I've done his coaching programs. Dr. Gabrielle Leon has done the most research on protein, and I find hers is easier to remember because it's whatever your goal body weight, she told me, whatever that goal body weight, say you want to be 130 pounds, that's what you have in protein, 130 grams a day. And you break it up 20 to 30 grams at once, which is a lot. And especially if you're doing 2 meals a day, intermittent fasting, like how do you get all that in?
Right.
There's different ranges, I know, for endurance athletes, strength power athletes, people weight loss. And then, you know, there's more research out there on the aging individual, the older adult needs almost the same amount as the athlete. So you'll see the different amounts per like 0.8 grams per kilogram of lean body mass. And Maria Emmerich has a bunch of info. I've been reading her stuff and the protein sparing diet and all of her info.
Yeah, I can see where it's true, where people run into trouble there. Because if you are someone who you're counting your macros and you have specific goals and say you're following, yes, okay, I want to weigh 130 pounds, so I should have half that, or I should have 130 grams of protein, but then I only eat 2 meals a day because my intermittent fasting window. And so I can see how going to the bars and the shakes and the powders are really appealing, because it's a lot easier to drink your nutrients than to try to eat them. And so that's quite the conundrum we've painted ourselves into.
Well, and also I would add in some links I can send you too. I was reading about the protein is that when, like I was tested twice at H. pylori and we can't break down the protein. So most people, especially as you get older, we don't have digestive enzymes, are usually low in that and low in stomach acid. So I know I switched to eating more meat the past few years and never really, I was more vegetarian for a long time and meat would gross me out. And so I couldn't eat a lot of meat just because it was an animal. And then I realized my body needed it. So I was trying to do more meat. And I used to try to do all those crappy vegan fake products that are filled with processed ingredients. And so now I'm eating more animal meat, but it's hard to digest it. So you have to really, what we teach in nutritional therapy, chew your food 20, 30 times, slow down and eat. I think eating the real protein is important, but how we eat it and digest and break it down is important, as well as we're talking about eating the bars if you have to. Ideally we want to eat real food that gives us energy, makes us feel full and satisfied for hours, and balances our blood sugar out. Nutrient dense whole foods is what we should be eating and what we're taught and what we teach our clients. So, eating that right amount of protein for you. I've done different Paul Chek Institute Holistic Lifestyle Coach certification and other programs. We use that metabolic typing diet. what metabolic type are you? Even if you want to do the test, is just adjust your macros. So, okay, am I full and satisfied, or if I'm hungry an hour later? Protein for me fills me up. Other people can eat way more carbs and they feel good. So you look at your genetics, like I've done DNA Fit, look at my metabolic typing, follow my glucose, and then you can individualize that personalized nutrition. But sometimes not everyone needs all that protein, or they can't even break it down and they're just having trouble digesting all that food.
Right. And I think maybe like the big takeaway from this conversation is, yeah, we can make it really complicated. If you want to make it complicated, you can. I think there's no shortage of areas to make nutrition incredibly complicated, but it really does just boil down to listening to your body and understanding what it is you need to listen to in the first place, because that's not something we're taught. And so working with someone like you, Debbie, like you'd be such a wonderful resource for people. Like if this is an area where you're struggling and just trying to figure out as an athlete how to best fuel your body, you don't have to do it alone. Like there are people out there that can help you, at least just teach you the basics of what you're looking for, what you're listening to, and how to track that and monitor it and adjust it. Because the goal isn't to have to work with someone for forever, like I think as practitioners, we want to be able to equip our clients with the information to know how to figure it out for themselves and to be resourceful and to, yes, always be there for support when needed. But like this is stuff that people can learn and know and not have to be confused.
Yeah, and what you just said is so true. And I find this all the time on reading Instagram, and I sometimes look at Facebook, but mostly Instagram. And I just think it's so overwhelming. And then there's so much information and this supplement and that supplement and this food plan. And that's like, just eat real food that works for your body, that you can digest and break down properly, because you are what you eat, but you are what you absorb. And what keeps that blood sugar steady, that you're full and energetic, you're happy. The metabolic typing chart diet we give people, it's like, hey, do you feel like you need a nap, or do you feel like you want to go smile and laugh and go have fun with friends? So I think it's so individualized, and we put it all into this one size fits all approach that we have to really go, okay, that's a foundation, a starting point. Then let's fine tune it based on what your body's saying, what it needs, and listen to it. And then fine tune it based on your hidden internal stressors. You might do functional lab tests to identify those hidden internal chronic stressors that you have no idea what's going on unless you test instead of guessing about it. And then your external stressors. And that's the biggest thing for me, is like, I was doing all of the right thing. I was low carb and training by heart rate. I was doing fasted workouts. I was doing keto before we knew it was keto, but I still got myself into adrenal exhaustion because I was doing everything too much. I was living life as a race, not a journey, as I wrote in my book. And I was running my business by myself, a fitness studio with huge rent, and it was constant stress. And so I think it's looking at that whole person. If you want to be fit and healthy from the inside out, it's not just let's tweak your nutrition. If you're not sleeping all night on TV and on your phone all night long, this isn't going to do anything for you. If you're not changing all these different things and you're not ready and motivated to do that, you come back to a practitioner or coach when you're ready to make the change, because it's not a magic pill that you just take. Oh, I'll take these enzymes and I'll be amazing. It takes work, and I think most people don't want to do it. So it's you get to the point that you like, I want to be better. I want to be amazing in my future life. Myself 20, 30 years from now, how do I want to be living my life? I'm turning 50 and I want my second half of my life to be my best part of my life, not feeling like crap every day and not be able to climb stairs.
Oh, that kind of gave me goosebumps when you said you want the second part of your life to be the best. Fantastic. Okay, I know you said you're not on social media, but is Instagram the best place for our listeners to find you?
I limit my time in social media, especially since COVID. I got a little too obsessed reading Facebook posts. I deleted. Good tip for everyone: don't have Facebook and Instagram on your cell phone and your iPad. And I have no notifications at all. So that's like a pet peeve when people have those ding alerts all the time. I think they're the worst.
Yes, so distracting. So distracting.
But I'm on Instagram, the Low Carb Athlete, and on Facebook, Low Carb Athlete.
Fantastic. And you have a intro program you're running right now, right? If anyone's
Yeah, just to help people get started. It's, looking at the nutritional therapy 3-day food log with their symptoms and looking at their exercise program if they're athletes or not. And then just kind of addressing those elements we talked about in the holistic method. And so it's a great package price that includes 2 coaching sessions, then all my work that I'll kind of put it together and assess just looking at what are you doing now and how can we make you better, feel better, and perform better.
Fantastic. Well, we'll be sure to link that up in the show notes, as well as the articles that we discussed. And I know you said you have some great supplemental articles to share as well for people to dive in more. So thank you so much. This has been such a great conversation. I think it's been really helpful for our listeners who are also athletes. So thank you for sharing your expertise with us today.
Yeah, so much to dive into, so many rabbit holes. So sorry if I got off tangent. I didn't answer all those article questions, but there's a lot to dive into and all of that.
Yeah, no, it was really good. All right, well, that is the end of today's episode. Our theme music is created by Andrew Bowden and production services are by Kevin Kennedy Spain of Disc of Light Media. Have a great week, everyone.
Have a great week.
Mm-hmm.